On behalf of Santa Fe Community Television, the following TV program involves a promising investigative study looking at a new clinical trial to determine whether the MMR II vaccine might protect individuals from being infected with COVID-19. There is a need for further studies to confirm that maybe MMR II is the answer for defense against COVID-19. The trial is being funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. You are urged to continue following recent protocols of hand washing, mask wearing, and social distancing.
Hello Santa Fe, and welcome to Living Santa Fe and COVID-19 with Dr. Larry Tilley. Doctor, thank you for being a guest today, and I want to thank Katrina Holder for recommending you.
Thank you so much. It's a great opportunity. Thank you.
This is how I get my shows. People recommend people in Santa Fe, and I have to say, if there's anything going on in the world, there's always somebody in Santa Fe that knows more.
Yes.
It's just been that way, and
Yep.
You're one of them.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm going to go back a little bit to the 1918 the 1918 flu, where 50 million people died, killed more than the 14th century Black Plague. But people started developing immunity after that. It became less lethal as the pandemic carried on in a wave into the future. It has continued to mutate through birds, bats, pigs, and other animals. And so some of the 1918 H1N1 makeup is in today's virus. They unfortunately called it the Spanish flu. And it seems like we always have to blame a country or a person for something. And in this case, it was Spain. And the only reason it was called the Spanish flu is because Spain was the first country to report it. King Alphonse had it, and he developed the flu along with some of his government officials. But at that time, it was in the United States, it was in France, it was in China, and probably other countries. Now, tell me if I'm wrong about this. The regular flu moves a lot faster, like maybe 1 to 4 days, where Corona-19, it's 2 days to 2 weeks.
Yep, I would agree.
Okay. But they're finding out that not only does the coronavirus make you sick, but it can cause after effects, possibly cardiovascular problems. Symptomatic people are harder to follow, so that's one of the problems. Today I listened on the news, Bob Woodward's interview with the president. Even the president has said it's a dangerous flu. That was recorded. However, there's deflect and deny, deflect and deny. Today we're going to have a show with Dr. Tilley on the MMR II vaccine and COVID-19. How does that connect with the Rubella? It's measles, mumps, and Rubella. Started in 1971.
Right.
I didn't get that shot because I'm too old.
Right, yep.
Okay? But it's connecting with Rubella. It has the same properties.
Right.
Explain that.
Yeah, well, I mean, just to back up a little bit, I mean, in March, April, when this whole situation of COVID spreading, you know, from China and so on, we start, I mean, it's like me, I was just reading the paper and couldn't understand why, for example, Italy, if you remember, Italy and France was having such a high rate of COVID cases in contrast to South Korea was having a markedly low rate. It was just a marked disparity between the two. Other examples, Hong Kong, which is probably the same size as New York City, but Hong Kong has only had a very few number of deaths, while New York City is close to 20,000 people. So anyway, we looked at, and just common sense, just looking at, reading the paper, what is going on? So I have a computer analyst friend of mine, I haven't talked to him for like 4 or 5 years, his name is Jeff Gold. And Jeff lives in Georgia. I called him and we started talking about this. And so what he did, which is amazing, which is actually fairly simple, but he's very computer savvy, looked geographically at every country worldwide. And we did see there's a pattern. Something's going on. Why is there such a less prevalence of COVID in these various countries, certain countries such as South Korea, some of the Asian countries, even Japan and so on. And even like, for example, Madagascar, which is a fairly good sized country, has basically no deaths from COVID-19. So anyway, we then came up on the fact that we found that the vaccination programs in these various countries are distinctly different. Some are more rigid than others. And we found that, for example, Italy is not as rigid. South Korea has a very rigid vaccination program, to the point where they had a measles outbreak a few years ago in Madagascar and also in South Korea, and then some of these other countries too. And when they had the measles outbreak, they then were very aggressive and vaccinated the population with MMR, which, by the way, is measles, mumps, and rubella. So then, to answer your question, we then we published a paper actually showing that something is going on. And just as we were getting ready to publish that first paper, which is done in May, we found that some neuroscientists in England found that the rubella part of the MMR, remember it's measles, mumps, and rubella, but the rubella structure is very similar to the same structure as COVID-19. The protein spikes, the amino acid sequence, and those protein spikes are what actually infiltrates the cell and actually creates the whole syndrome of the flu that we have. So we were just blown away. Here we showed geographically something was going on with the vaccination programs throughout the world, how there was a marked disparity between the two. And then all of a sudden we find that rubella is very similar. So, and even in their paper they proposed, that was much later after ours came out, that they proposed that there seemed to be a correlation. So yeah, MMR, and there's many other reasons which we can get into why and what we did then pursued. So we've published one paper, we've had a little bit of press, we've had struggle trying to get the word out. You know, I'm a veterinary specialist, I'm a board certified internist. Most of my work, surprisingly though, is on the human side. I do a lot of work in cardiology. I'm an expert for the electrocardiogram. So I do work in research, so I kind of have a research mind, even though I'm a veterinarian, but I'm an educator. I've written many textbooks. So I do have kind of that sort of a concept. And so what we did, we pursued it further. And so we looked into it further with the MMR. And mainly because, again, geographically something was going on. It didn't make sense. And then, of course, we found out that the rubella structure was so similar to the COVID-19.
Interesting. Same properties. And MMR II, very simple childhood vaccination.
Yep. And so MMR there's been 2 versions of MMR that's been produced, I believe by Merck and maybe a couple other companies. But anyway, the one that's more current is one that was done in 1979. So, and that one is a booster shot, and people above 41 years of age, if you also look at the data, another clue, above 41 years of age, there's a huge higher prevalence of COVID-19 complications. So of course that could correlate to, because they never had access to that MMR II. So if you're above 41 years of age, that's a very pivotal point, okay? The other key thing that we found, it's very common sense, we found why are women having less problems with COVID-19? Well, women often get the MMR shot because of pregnancy, because the rubella, if you remember, is one that can create congenital defects. So it's almost standard in the field medically that women that are pregnant need to have the MMR shot. We also found that infants under 1 year of age have a higher death rate. Still low, but it's still a high death rate, because remember, children usually get the MMR shot at 1 year of age. We also found that from 1 to 14 years of age for children, there is a markedly less rate of COVID-19. Above 14, it starts to decline. So there is a correlation there. We also found one other question you should ask is, why is half of the population out there that are positive for COVID-19 not showing signs? Well, there's probably a correlation, which I'll talk to you later, but a correlation of the MMR. Did they have the shots? Whatever happened?
You have a lot of anti-vaxxers today. I think it's like 50% don't take the flu shot.
Right, yeah. I don't know if it's 50%, but it's up there. It's like, I think it's close to 20%. So, so if you see, if there's children that are actually having major complications from COVID-19, a lot of them have another disease that makes them more prone to the problem. Their immune system is not as solid, but you're right, some of those have never been vaccinated with the MMR.
Okay, let me ask you a question. I have not had the regular flu shot. I usually get it in September or October. But I actually went down and got this MMR II shot.
Yep.
Just the other day.
Yep.
That builds up my immunity. The regular flu shot will build up my immunity.
Correct.
Is that a problem, getting them close together?
No, there's no problems doing the flu shot that's currently out now, the new one, along with the MMR. I make the covering statement, you should always check with your doctor. I think here in most states, including New Mexico, you don't even need a doctor's prescription to go get the MMR shot. You can go right to any pharmacy. But I still, just common sense, you should really check with your doctor. A lot of the doctors are starting to hear about what we've been doing with this work. We're still trying to get this word out. One of the reasons, I'm jumping ahead, but one of the reasons why we're maybe struggling a little bit with getting the word out with this MMR concept, countering COVID-19, is that it's almost too simple, right? Here's a shot that's been around for years. I said, what? How could it be MMR is going to help counter COVID-19? Well, again, if you hear what we've been talking about, it's really solid, and we can get into further. We've been doing some other testing now too that even further confirms what we found.
Well, you go back into history, just like I did with the Spanish flu, and you find out all sorts of things you didn't know about that's affecting this flu.
Right, right.
I mean, it's all related.
Totally. And I think a lot.
History.
Yeah, I think a lot of it's just. I mean, to back up here. I don't know it's a good concept, but like the forest and the trees. I mean, I think there's so much stuff in the literature and the TV about all these different ideas and different vaccines and this concept, but still no answers. And I think what one needs to do is someone needs to stand back and the forest and trees and see, and that's what we did. We saw that there was something didn't make sense. And then what you do is you further pursue that. That's what happens with research. You follow through, and that's what we did. It's probably the key thing.
How many researchers have been pulled in on this? I noticed Tulane, Stanford, Columbia University are all working.
Right, what we did is that our first paper was published by Jeff Gold and myself, and we're not immunologists. We're not, quote, experts in this field. So our second paper, which we are in the midst of getting in press, we now put along with it a co-author of epidemiologists that are out from Tulane, Stanford University, Louisiana State University, University of Georgia. So we've actually got like 4 or 5 other co-authors that have actually agreed to being a co-author and agree with our findings. So we have a pending paper that's being published hopefully very soon that further confirms what we have found.
Okay, let's go a little bit into something that should be brought out. We have a lot of denying and deflecting in this country from both parties, everybody. I was particularly interested in the Oxford AstraZeneca study that is going on. That's one. There were others, I think Pfizer and a lot of other ones, trying to find a vaccine.
Yep.
Okay, a few days ago, the Oxford study stopped because they had one case of somebody getting sick. So these type of studies are not brought about overnight.
Right.
Sometimes they take months and years. We still don't have anything for H1N1 really.
Right.
So that that is one of the things I wanted to bring out. And the person that was sick, it turned out it was not caused from the sample shot.
Right.
It was a neurological problem. But there you go again. It's back in going again.
Right.
I think it's up and running. But and then they're saying, oh, we'll have the shots out by October and November. They won't even meet the supply need
Right. No, it's,
till 2004.
yeah, there's such a dilemma. I think I hate to use it's misinformation, I guess, and I guess it is a lot of stuff going on. I think there's a number now of 90 vaccines that are in the works right now,
Right.
worldwide. But just to back up, there's only been 22, I would realize this, there's only been 22 vaccines ever approved over the last hundreds of years. So it's not an easy process to actually create a vaccine for a new disease. So yes, keep our fingers crossed, hopefully something will occur, but I'm not that optimistic about whether this is going to take place. It may take longer than they say. They're talking about, end of the year to maybe have a COVID vaccine.
But even then, if they don't have a supply till 2024,
Right.
it's a slow process, and
Right.
and I'm tired of the denying and deflecting
Right.
of this dangerous virus.
Yeah.
And it has been brought out by everybody. It is dangerous and possibly has more details after you get over it.
Right, a lot of after effects and so on. But yeah, I mean, getting back to the MMR, which is what's the work I've been focused on myself and Jeff Gold and the other doctors, MMR, guess what, is available already. There's millions of those vaccines sitting in vials.
I know.
Millions. So they're ready, they can do this. And well, what happened, I'm going to bring it up, but you may know that Bill Gates, the Bill Gates Foundation, we all know Bill Gates, right? He, in the last 4 or 5 years, has put up, I think, quote, maybe billions of dollars to get vaccines out to the poor people worldwide. So he's got a big program. He's been doing this for a while. And now, of course, he's really active because of trying to he's put a lot of money into getting the COVID-19 vaccine. But what he did just recently, just 3 days ago, he must have seen our work. Jeff Gold, my partner, has had a talk with one of the people at Bill Gates Foundation. But Bill Gates just announced a $9 million grant to London University, I believe it's in London, to actually study MMR and its effects. So somehow they do they've seen our work. They haven't seen our second paper, which basically confirms what we think is really happening. So,
Well, the other day when I went down to get my shots, I went to Smith. They had 2 MMR shots. So I got one, and my friend got another one. And he called the pharmacist up at the other Smiths. He had some.
great.
So we get up there. He said, I just heard about this on the Doc Talk show on Sirius Radio.
Oh, okay.
So he was aware of it. He said, I guess I better start getting prepared. I said, I think you better. Because if this breaks out, everybody needs to take that shot.
Yeah. Well, what we propose again is what there's many reasons. What we have done, and I can't give you all the details because it's pending a new publication, but common sense, what we did is we looked at people that had COVID-19 disease. They were positive with COVID-19. And basically what we found, and what we did is then looked at the titers. We looked at MMR titers, which means you're looking at, is there MMR in their system, okay? And we found that those people that were really, really quite sick, they survived, but really were quite sick, their MMR titers were markedly low. While the people that had really basically no signs or minimal signs and were still positive with COVID had MMR titers that were markedly elevated. So this is all preliminary. We're still in the midst of confirming all this data and doing all the stats. But tentatively right now, we believe it's the answer. I mean, it gives me chills to think about it because we're talking about, just backing up here, it's so, as you know, so sad globally, worldwide, the economy, the people dying. It's scary, and hopefully this will be the answer. It needs to be pursued further by the administration, by the experts in the field. I'm not an epidemiologist, I'm not a vaccine specialist, I'm a researcher and I'm an educator, so I do have that sort of a background to think this way. But again, I'm not an expert in vaccines.
Well, you've also worked with animals,
Right, right,
so you know that this virus can come through different animals.
right. It's rare. That's been, you gotta be careful there. I think we don't want to have people, having a dilemma worried about their pets, but it's pretty rare.
Yeah,
It's rare.
but like pigs and
Right.
Bats and
Right,
and birds and things
right,
like
right.
that. It is-
But I mean, jumping ahead, I mean, and one of our conclusions, and we've said this in some interviews too, that I just, right now, MMR should be given to people that are in the healthcare professions, people that are older, if anything, above 50, 60 years of age, people that are very prone to having some problems like this. And so, globally, this should be done. And the big thing is with children, the rate of COVID complications is quite rare. Under 14 years seems to be the pivotal point. So from 1 year to 14 years of age, children are markedly less prone to COVID. It's rare. It's less problems. So, but again, if they haven't been vaccinated with the MMR because of this vaccine situation, not believing in a vaccine, they need to have the MMR if at all possible, those children.
And there's no proof that the flu virus, which is the anti-vaxxers will not take, there's no proof that causes any problem at all. Asperger's, there's no documented evidence that happens.
No, it's not the case. It's just, no.
And it's a dead virus.
Right.
It's a dead virus, and people tell me, oh, I got so sick after I got that flu flu virus, I just will never take it again.
Yeah.
I said, no, you didn't get sick from that because it's a dead virus.
Right. We've got, I can go on and on with all the different evidence. Even another evidence, if you probably remember the U.S. Roosevelt, where they had close to 4,000 sailors on the ship, and they got COVID. And I think right around 800 of the 4,000 did get the COVID, but guess what? Only one died, and only 8 people had to be hospitalized. Markedly less than what you would see geographically and so on. And it turns out, if you're in the service, it's mandatory that you get the MMR, because in the service, especially in the Navy, they're traveling worldwide. So again, another clue that simply ties in. So we have a list of like 5 or 6 things that really stand out that says that MMR appears to be the answer. Now, I'm not going to say that absolutely. I think it needs to be now taken to the next level. Dr. Fauci, CDC, NIH, the administration, to now take this to the next testing. Now Gates is doing this, but there still needs to get out, start to pursue this on a more active way.
Okay. So, now you have not used any politics at all in your research.
No. And I'm non-political. I hate politics, to be candid. I just stay away.
Yeah, but so working with professional scientists, doctors, researchers is what you've been doing.
Right, yeah. And we have contact. I've contacted the administration. I think I even gave it to you. We have an editorial. I mean, interesting. We were struggling trying to get the word out. So I had an idea about 2 months ago. We thought there must be a veterinarian that's either a congressman or a senator, right? I think. So I looked it up and I found that there were 2. There's one that guy's Ted Yoho, who's located in Georgia, Georgia, I believe. And we talked to him. I called him up. He goes, "Wow, Dr. Tilley," and he knows my text. I've written many textbooks. Yeah. So he knew me, and was honored to talk to me, and I was honored to talk to a congressman. And so he heard what we had been doing, and he was, in a way, blown away by what we found. As you can see, it seems to be really clear. So he did an editorial in The Hills. It's a website for an administration, and it goes to all of the politicians and everybody that's in Washington, D.C. So that was done about 2 months ago. It was really well done. And so there has been a spark. There's been some interest, but still nothing pursuing it, because I think what's happening, administration, NIH, all these specialists are being bombarded by so many ideas And I guess they need to grasp onto this one for sure, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now again, on this MMR shot, it's not a dangerous shot.
No, I think, I always use the coverage statement. You really should check with your doctor, but you probably don't need to, but you really should, just only because if you have something in your system that may be counteractive, so you should check with your doctor, just common sense. But no, it's a simple shot, it's in your arm, you get a little bit of soreness. No, and children get it at 1 year of age.
That's right.
Okay, so.
That's right. Are there any additional benefits from this MMR?
Well,
I mean,
I
know it makes your immune system stronger.
Yeah, there's a thing called, a term called innate immunity. So any shot that you get from whether it's MMR or polio shots, your body is retrained to be reactive to any new virus that may come up. So there is a possibility that just any shot can actually provide some what we call innate immunity, but it's not enough to counter, I don't think, the COVID-19 effects. So, yeah.
Bill Gates, going back to Bill Gates, I know he wanted to get rid of polio. He's been working on that.
Yep.
Measles, he's been working on that. And if he's taken an interest in it and putting his money in it, there's something to it.
Totally. And I think, and he'll find, I think he must know this, but you probably can realize this, but worldwide, the measles vaccination programs have kind of been stopped now because of the COVID-19. The health workers cannot get to the countries and vaccinate the population. And measles, as you may know, is a very deadly disease. So there are literally, supposedly hundreds of thousands of people that are now getting measles and they're having major complications. And so by giving the MMR II, we're going to stop COVID-19 and we're going to help counter the measles in these poor countries and so on.
Okay, I remember I had measles as a kid. But there were the German measles and just the regular measles.
Right.
The red measles, I don't know, there were names for all of them.
Right.
My mother stuck me in a dark room and brought me sherbet and comic books and I was thrilled.
Right.
But I didn't get too sick with it, but I was sick.
Sure.
And I broke out.
Yeah.
But do I still have any antibodies from that?
Yeah, that's quite, yeah, because there is some immunity that still lasts, but it doesn't last that long. And so you do, many of us have had measles at a young age, and so it does have an effect, but it's probably not enough antibodies have been created to counter the COVID-19. And then a lot of it gets a little complicated, but in this new vaccine, the MMR II that came out in 1979, it has a certain strain of Rubella that appears to be actually a better, more effective, is I think the word to use, a more effective strain of Rubella compared to the one that came out in 1971. So the most recent one that came out in 1979 is a much better MMR shot.
Okay.
And especially if we follow through with that Rubella. The Rubella part appears to be maybe why it's working. We don't know for sure, but it looks like that's the clue.
I know what mumps are, and I know what measles. Tell us about Rubella. What is it?
Well, Rubella is, of course, I believe the term for that is called German measles, I believe.
I think so, but I'm not.
And again, that is a disease that causes congenital defects. And that's why women that have pregnancy need to have the shot to counter. And it's still currently being done. It's pretty universal. And again, that's also, why women are less prone to COVID-19. A lot of them have had the MMR,
I think it's a must if you're pregnant.
Yep.
I think it's a must.
Totally, yep.
All right, someone that say had the measles shot when they were very young, this MMR II, can they get a booster shot?
Yeah, I think I guess it'll have to be worked out by the vaccine experts. But from what I know, and again, we're studying this literature all the time, yeah, the MMR II really should be a booster shot. You should get one shot and then another one about a month or so apart. So the booster shots probably should be given, especially if they've never had the booster shot. In fact, the requirements of the MMR II is 2 shots, shot on day 1 and then about 1 month later. So, yeah.
Okay, tell me a little bit about your background. Where are you from?
Yeah, Yeah, I grew up in Iowa, not on a farm. My father was a conservation officer, a game warden, so my whole life was living with wild animals and taking care of them, and probably why I got into veterinary medicine. And I went to school at Iowa State University after I went to veterinary school, and then I did get an internship called the Animal Medical Center in New York City, and that was in 1970. And went there as an intern. It's almost like the Mayo Clinic of veterinary medicine, right in the middle of Manhattan. And I was there for almost 20-some years, and I was head of the Department of Medicine there. Basically, spent a lot of time there, and that's where I got into education, and I'm primarily an educator now. I've written probably close to, I guess, 20-some textbooks and numerous journal articles. But a lot of my work in New York City was I would spend my extra days in the weekend and go and spend time on the human side, Columbia University, Rockefeller, New York hospitals. So I would spend 1 or 2 days working with the real doctors, and then I would take what they were doing and apply that to what I was doing at this large medical facility right in Manhattan. So again, I was in that aura of high medical knowledge and taking that to levels of education. And probably is what I'm doing right now. So most of my time was spent there, and then I guess eventually moved to Santa Fe, semi-retired, but now very, very active with many of the pharmaceutical companies. I'm an expert in regards to QT prolongation on the electrocardiogram. Any drug could potentially cause problems related to the heart, and I'm an expert in that area. So I'm an expert for many electrocardiograms, the EKG signals. So yeah, I'm an educator, I'm a consultant, I'm a veterinarian, I'm board certified in internal medicine. So again, I have that expertise, but again, I really clarify, I'm not an epidemiologist. This is something that maybe it's the reason why I was able to find this answer with the work with Jeff Gold. I'm able to really kind of stand back and see the whole picture. While I think a vaccine specialist and epidemiologist, they're like in the midst of it, and I think they often don't see the whole picture to a certain extent.
Yeah. None of us do. We never see the big picture. I see a lot of that going on right now.
Right.
So you've lived here in Santa Fe for how long?
25 years.
25 years.
Yeah.
Well, I remember playing golf with you at Quail Run for a fundraiser.
Yeah, that's where we first met.
Yes.
She's a good golfer, by the way.
I wasn't so good that day.
They were going straight.
They go straight. That's all I care about anymore. I'm lucky to be walking on grass, so I'm very thrilled about that. I've always been very careful about who I put on this show.
Uh-huh.
And I don't always believe everything they tell me, because I do a lot of interviews with politicians.
Sure.
But I believe you're onto something, and I believe it so much that I went down and got the shot.
Great. Yeah, we've talked to a lot of, even the epidemiologists that are on our authorship, they've all got their shots, for example. No, it's just, it gives me chills to think about it. What if this is the answer? My God, because of what's going on, it's terrifying, as you know. Every day you wake up on what's going on next, right?
Yes.
So I do believe, and the word is getting out. We have this other paper coming out.
It's on the internet.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
it's on the internet.
So we're getting the word out. So.
Well, Doctor, thank you so much. It's an honor to have you on this show.
Thank you.
And you know what? You might make Santa Fe famous again, and I'm not so sure we want that.
No, we're gonna just keep it a little quiet, okay? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kelly.